Welcome to the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily, the podcast for dog lovers who want to build better relationships with their furry companions. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and in today's episode, I'm joined by the amazing Martina Miradoli from That Ado Academy. Martina is an expert in all things Border Collie, and today we're diving deep into what makes this breed so unique. We'll explore their intelligence, energy, and herding instincts, and how pet parents can best support their needs. If you're thinking about getting a Border Collie or already have one in your life, this episode is packed with invaluable advice to help you better understand and connect with your dog. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and I'm so excited to bring you another episode today. And I'm even more excited that we've got our second breed-specific expert, Martina Miradoli, from That Ado Academy. Martina specialises in the collie breed. So I'm so excited to have her on today. She's a specialist trainer that focuses on Border Collies through the That Ado Academy. Martina has experience in helping dog owners better understand and support this intelligent and energetic breed. So I'm so excited to dig deeper, and I'm so excited to have Martina here. Martina, welcome to the Yappy Hour. It's so great to have you here with me today. How are you doing?
Hello, and thank you for having me. It's good to actually be interviewed because I normally interview other people, so I quite enjoy it today, being the
So
one
you're
answering question and not asking.
so you're
But
sat in
I'm
the
really
hot
good, yeah.
seat.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here. So brilliant. So Martina, for those who may not know you yet, can you just share a little bit about That Ado Academy and what inspired you to specialize in Border Collies?
Yes. So if probably some of you will know that that'll do is the end of the work for Border Collie. When you want to call them off sheep, we don't use their names. We actually say that'll do, and that means forget
Oh
about sheep
wow.
and come away.
Oh, I had
Um,
no idea. That's
Okay.
brilliant.
Yeah. So that's why I decided to call it like that. Because of course, I deal with dogs that can't switch off and can't actually make the decision to stop. And I specialized in 2021. I was a bit late because a lot of people were telling me to do it during lockdown, and I was like, nah, not ready, and then I had because of course 2021 was still that kind of odd year where people were like working from home and everything, and I had people sending me that in that year a lot of colleagues that they didn't want to work because I think we became a bit more kind of, we could say a bit more no, we learned to be a bit more specific in what we wanted to do. So a lot of my
Mm.
colleagues will say, can you see this colleague, can you take it? I don't have the time and everything. So I started realizing that my colleagues were sending me colleagues.
Okay. That's a
So I
bit of a mouthful.
Yes, I know. uh,
Your colleagues were sending you collies.
So I decided, why not? Why not specializing? And at that point, I've had border collie since, my first border collie arrived in 2005. So it's going to
Oh,
be 20 years now from owning my
wow.
first border collie. So I
Okay.
decided maybe I know something about the breed.
So-
Yeah, and I've been doing everything with them. I've done competitive obedience, competitive agility, herding. Since my very first dog, I've trained them with sheep as well. I've done scent work. I've done a bit of everything. And of course, they were my pets and they were my companion. They traveled from Italy with
Yes,
me,
because
my
you're
first
originally
two.
from Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
I
moved in
love that.
2014 and they traveled with me. We had a car full of stuff and we just traveled.
Wow. So what made you come from Italy then? Because I imagine it's a beautiful part of the world. And what part of Italy are you from?
So I'm from Milan. So I'm from a big
Oh, even
city.
even exotic.
I know. I'm from a big city and now I'm sitting in my own farm in the middle
That's
of nowhere.
right. Yes, that's I'd rather that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, my dad. So the first time I actually acknowledged border collies was when I was very little and we went on holidays to Ireland and the UK because my dad was very passionate about everything that was British and
Oh,
Irish,
lovely.
everything about these two islands. And when they give you colored books to color when you're a kid in restaurants,
Yes,
and my mum
yes.
has still got a couple of them, and there's one where there's a kid like having a dream, and I've put sheep and I've put a black and white dog in that. But I was like, I don't know, 8. So I didn't even know what I was doing. And then my mom is like, look at this. You were already
Wow.
drawing
Yeah,
colors because yeah,
you
because
were
I was seeing them
visualizing
in the,
it.
So yeah, so it
You
started there.
manifested that.
I manifested it, yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so exciting. So, Martina, what is it about Border Collies that fascinates you the most?
So again, the first time I actually learned what border collies were is when I was coming to this country as a kid with my parents, and I remember seeing them moving sheep. And I didn't even like dogs at the time because I was a horse person, a horse kid at the time, horse and
Okay.
cats. I didn't have dogs at the time. But I think that's the thing that always fascinated me is their ability, their drive to the job they have. And
Mm,
even when I got my first border collie, and I still didn't know that it was possible to actually in Italy train them with sheep. I wanted a border collie because they were those dogs that were moving sheep in the UK. So I think that's always the thing that fascinated me. And I was in horses before I was in dogs, and I love training. And I used
lovely.
to, ride at quite high level in horses as well. I was doing dressage. So I've always
Oh, wow.
I've always liked to have a relationship with animals with a higher kind of intelligence where you can train higher skills together.
Mm,
So
mm.
when I looked into what breeds, then they were the one that were described as you can do everything with them. You can do agility, you can do this dog, you can do freestyle, you can do everything. They herd sheep all day and they go and gather sheep on the hills. So that was similar to the horses I was working with.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Aren't they the most intelligent breed, collies, out of all the
I'm not
dogs? Is
sure.
that what they say? I think poodles
they
are second and collies are
yeah.
meant to be first, but I don't know how true that is.
I think there are different type of intelligence. I think that's the study. I can't remember. I read it many, many years ago. And I think they are the most intelligent, and in a way that they can be trained at high level and they can be trained
Yes.
at high details and
Yes.
skills, as we all know, freestyle and all the dancing dogs that know millions behaviors. So yeah, I think they can be trained at high level. Now put one of them in the woods, they probably wouldn't survive.
Oh, okay.
They're not good hunters at all. So they have their own qualities, but yeah.
Of course. Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Thank you. So, moving on to our next section is understanding the Border Collie mindset. Border Collies are known for their intelligence, what we've just mentioned there, and their work ethic. But what does that really mean for a day to day life with them?
So they are driven to work. They are driven to do something. They want to
Mm,
constantly be doing something. So
mm,
they are dogs that as soon as you get up, they're up and they're like, okay, what are we doing now?
yeah.
I can't in the morning. I wake up in the morning. I have my breakfast. They have the breakfast. I have my breakfast, and then the moment they read my body language so well, and that's a thing that is very sometimes difficult for people. They read my body language as soon as they understand that that's my last sip of coffee. They're
Yeah.
up at the door, and like
Right.
my
We're ready
young
to
one is
go.
pushing at the door like that, like come on, come on, come on, let's go out because they love the routine.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
go in the paddock and then they play, and I walk around with them and I make them run, so they have that half an hour of burning energies in the morning before I start my work or I start doing things around the farm. So I think that drive is what is what really people don't realize they have. They think,
Mm,
oh yeah, it's going to be a puppy, it's going to be this. My 6 months old puppy just now finished teething, finished that kind of little bit sensitive phase, and I can see the drive now. I can see it.
right.
I can't wait
Okay.
to train her on sheep because she needs it.
She needs to be given
And
something to do.
she needs a job, and of course I'm training her. I'm doing a lot of tricks training and shaping and other things, but she needs to start. And at 6 months old you can start seeing the amount of work she will need because she's
Right.
really on all the time and she wants to do. She's constantly asking you, let's do this, let's do that. So the
Yeah.
drive, I think, is what is the drive to do and the drive to be useful as well
Yeah.
is what
Yeah. How many collies do you have, Martina?
I have. 5.
Oh,
5?
wow.
Yes.
You had
Yes,
to think
5.
of
Yeah. So we
5,
have 8
wow.
dogs. Yeah, we have
Oh,
8
you've got
dogs in
8.
total.
Well, I've
Yeah.
got 7. I've got 7, so you've got
Oh,
one more
well.
than me.
Yes.
8 dogs.
Um,
Wow, that's a dream.
yeah, so they go from 6 months old to 14 years
Lovely.
old. Yeah.
Lovely. So I was just, it's going to come to one of our questions, but I was just thinking that for like a pet parent or a guardian to bring a border collie puppy into their lives, their home, they really need to understand the breed and do their research, because people
Yes.
just think, oh, it's a puppy. And then, like you say, they need to be given something to do. So, what are some of the most common misconceptions people have about border collies?
So I think that the one that we're talking about before, the fact that they're so intelligent, people think they're easy to train.
Mm.
And because you see them on TV and they have these amazing skills and it looks like it's easy. So I think everyone thinks, "Oh yeah, I'll get a border collie because they're easy."
Right.
Um, and for some reason, people think that they're good for children and because they are playful, but it's not always the case. Sometimes, it is actually more challenging if you've got kids in the home. And I think I think the border collie breed has changed a lot in the last 10 years, 10, 20 years. And I think a lot
Mm.
of people had them when they were kids. If they are our age, they might have had them when they were kids and their parents or their grandparents had a border collie. And the
Yeah.
type of border collie that was more available 20 years ago was a different type of dog than the
Yeah,
one
I
we have
bet.
now. Breeds keep changing.
Things have changed.
So I think that some people remember the old border collie that was happy to just sit and wait to go for a walk. And but nowadays are bred to be more driven and quicker to
Mm.
work. So they're
Mm.
bred to have a quicker switch on to work because there is
Yes.
a lot of trade around border collies. People do it for a living. They buy them as puppies, they start them, they sell them, at 10 months old, fully trained on sheep.
Wow.
But that means that they have more drive and they have more prey
Mm.
chase instinct because they have to be starting a bit quicker and be
Okay.
ready quicker than in the old days they say, oh, border collie wouldn't work until he was a year and a half or two. They will take their time to train
Mm.
them. While nowadays they're fully trained at 10 months old, so you have to breed something that can take that.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So for those pet parents that are considering a border collie, what should they know before bringing one into their home?
So first thing is I would suggest to look at the breed as a whole because of course the more available one are the working border collies.
Mm.
Everyone has a farm around where they live and they
Yeah.
think that the easiest thing is to go and buy a puppy from a farm. But the random farm that breeds to work doesn't have the selection for a dog that is suitable to pet living.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is to actually go out and look at the options you have. Is not always the best option to go to a farm. It's a bit more, it's prettier with more coat, but they are bred to actually be more calm and has less drive because they're bred
Right.
to appear nice. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and probably some people are breeding more for pets types,
Mm.
or
Mm.
and maybe they've been breeding them for generation to be house dogs rather than coming off the farm straight away.
Yeah.
So do your research. What kind of collie are you taking home? Are you going to, a lot of my students come from, Welsh farms where they have mountains to work on and they live in the middle of nowhere. And it might have been generation of dogs that live in the middle of nowhere. What they're
Mm.
selecting is a dog that, yeah, is a bit noise sensitive. Who cares? We are in the middle of nowhere. They need a lot of exercise. They've got mountains to work on. But if you're taking that into Manchester, that can be a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Into a big city, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine. So I was walking a border collie at one point, and I think this is a common thing that you probably know what I'm about to say is that it used to chase cars
Hmm.
coming up.
Yeah.
We'd walk out of our house and it was like a bit of a hill. And in the end, I had to park right outside our house because at that point I wasn't training. I was doing dog walking, so I didn't understand. But she used to chase the cars, so I guess that's her innate sort of that's her makeup, isn't it, to sort of do something like that?
Yeah, so border collies chase cars for two main reasons. One is, of course, they see something that moves and they want to control it. But then there is another reason that I see very often, which is actually is driven by fear of the
Right.
noise of the car.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, because border collies have that need to control, and when they are afraid of something, they tend to control it. A lot of border collie will
Mm,
shark around other dogs or things that they're not sure about, and that's the way to actually control what they're scared of. So
mhm.
I see sometimes border collies that actually start chasing cars because they hear this noise. They see this big thing moving, they don't know what it
Yeah,
is, and then they want to stop it. They want to control it because that makes them feel better about it.
I see. Okay, yeah,
So these are the
that makes
two main
sense.
reasons that
That
they will
makes
stop. But
sense.
there's definitely some that will chase or will want to chase cars because they're on a lead, they get frustrated, something is
Yeah.
going past very fast and they just want to stop it.
Yeah,
Um,
and they have better hearing than us as dogs, so they can hear these loud noises, like you say. And there's a lot of them going up and down the road. So to the dog,
yeah.
poor dog, it's like, oh my god, like what's going on? Um, yeah,
Their
so it's
hearing is
quite,
incredible. I
mm,
have my At the moment I've got my iPhone earphones on, which are completely soundproofed.
yeah,
And I don't know how, but if I'm watching a video of sheepdog training quite loud because and Tay is in the room, he can hear it. He can hear the whistle in the video. I
right,
don't know
okay,
how. So even if I try to watch it without earphones and I put it at the minimum level, he still hears the whistling and he will start, standing up and looking around and then looking at me and then looking out the window and
yeah,
expecting sheep to be there. So that's the
yeah,
level of hearing they have. Um,
amazing, absolutely
so
amazing.
yeah.
And for our listeners, because again, it's another question I don't really know the answer to, and I probably should. But for our listeners, like when the border collie stalks goes down low, can you just explain what's happening there?
Yeah, so border collies together with kelpies and bearded collies are the only three breeds that work with the eye.
Mm,
All the other herding breeds will work with the bark or with body pressure or just with their movement, but the collies
mm,
work with their eye, which means that they
mm,
use the prey sequence, which starts with, eyeing the prey and stalking the
mm,
prey.
mm.
They behave. It's so much fun when I watch some documentary of wolves because you can see the wolf moving, ready to pounce on a prey, and it looks like one of my colleagues that have no coat and got pricked ears. They move the same way, they look like predators, and that stance, of course, startle the sheep, and that starts moving, and they start reacting to what we call the pressure. They
Yeah.
put pressure on the livestock with that stance, and that stance that I is used to control. They control sheep that way. So they will move left and right. And with the movement and the eyes constantly on the prey, the sheep will
Mm,
actually move to get away from that pressure. And
mm.
that's how they control flocks.
Right. Yeah. That's so interesting. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. So, moving on to our next section is meeting the needs of a high energy breed. So, we know that border collies thrive on both physical and mental stimulation. What are some of your favourite ways to meet those needs?
Okay. So, first thing with border collies is that we need to try not to give them too much of a routine. And of course, on a farm, it's easier because I have my fields and I have this and that. But when you live in a home and you know you don't have the same kind of rhythm all the time. If you create a big routine, they will want it all the time. So I always try when I used to live in a house, but even now, like today, they had no walk. I always try to mix and match what they do. I don't do the same thing every day. I don't ask them to do I don't expect them to want like 3 hour walk every day.
Mm,
There's some days where we do a big walk and there's some days where we do a lot of training. And there's a day where we go for a walk on a lead, and there's a day where we go to class, and there's a day where we go shopping. I don't know. That every time there needs to be something different. You give them different things to do. Don't just do one thing.
yeah.
They're not dogs that can go for just your walk around the block.
No.
They're not made for
They're
that.
boring. Yeah.
They're not made for that. So if you're planning to have a border collie to just have a walk around the block, it's not going to work. They're going to end up into troubles. So they need high exercise, like high intensity exercise,
Mm,
and that can be going running with them, that can be taking them swimming, that can be play, of course, with them. Although I'm not a big fan of ball throwing and ball chucking a lot, but
no,
if that's
because it's
twice a week where they burn energy in 10, 15 minutes and they
mm,
sometimes need it, they need a lot of training. Their
bit
brain needs to be stimulated a
too
lot.
much ball throwing is being repetitive is not good on their joints, is it? And that's a
It's
common
not good on their
misconception.
joints and it's not good on their adrenaline level. Um,
Mm,
they they just want more. I'm working at the moment with two different ones from different places, different ages, but similar problem because that's the main exercise they get: ball throwing, ball throwing, ball throwing. They can't
it
switch off.
gets a bit obsessive
Yes, he's
with the
obsessive,
ball.
and then this, yeah.
And I think as pet owners, pet parents, like we probably don't know no different. We think that's okay because we see it and we think that's okay to throw a ball, but really it's probably having more of an adverse effect on the dog in
Yeah, and
without.
don't get me wrong, you can do it, but the way you do it and when you start doing it, I would never do it with a puppy.
Mm,
I would wait until they're fully grown and they're a bit older. So my puppy played with a ball, like me chucking the ball, her plays chasing him, bringing him back for the first time last week or this week. What day is today, man? Last week. She's 6 months old. She has a good
yeah.
retrieve. She wants to share the toy with me. She
Oh.
knows that she gets, the toys about me and her. So
Mm,
at this point, throwing the ball a couple of times, she'll bring it back, sit in my lap, and give it to me.
mm,
Is not an obsessing thing. She's not waiting for me to throw it because we've built a routine already where she sits and waits, or I hold the collar, I throw the toy out, I wait for the toy to stop, then she goes and chases it, then she brings it back to my hand, and then we do a bit of training, and then I throw the toy again, and then I ask her some behavior. So the ball becomes part of a game between me and her rather than me just being a ball chucker.
and I think that then also helps improve your bond and your relationship,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
play. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So
that's
yeah,
great.
so it's important though that they have some high intensity
Mm,
exercise because they need it,
mhm,
if they can't
mm,
go working sheep where they really use all their energies and all their power, both mental and physical, then they need to have it. So yes, agility is good, flyball could be good, other sports, centaur is good, but play needs to be play is probably the best way to give them that kind of outlet, but it
yeah.
needs to be done the proper way.
That's great. Thank you. Martina, how can pet parents provide appropriate outlets without over exercising or overstimulating their dog?
I think giving them, like, for example, in the house, I have toys available for them, but I don't do a lot of toy play in the house. So in the house is more
Mm,
relaxing time.
yes, I'm a
That's
big
that's a
fan.
big rule.
Yeah.
And they have toys because I have multiple dogs, of course. So they have toys available. They sometimes play with each other, especially the young dogs, but they know that I'm not part of it. So that if then the adult dogs don't want to play, the young ones learn to settle.
Mm,
So the house
yeah.
is settle time.
I'm big on that. The house is all calming activities, settle time, but
Yeah.
outside you can maybe have the more sort of play
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe one of the room, like the kitchen, for example, could be the training place because, of course, you have to be doing training indoor.
Yes.
But it's more like it's the kitchen. So then the living room where you sit down on your sofa and you want to relax. There's no play involved in the living room.
Yeah.
They need to learn. Some of them need to learn to switch off. Not all of them. Some of them are really good, but some have to learn. So to me, using a pen and using a crate to teach them that there is switch off time, it's important. I'll tell you, for example, I talk about my dogs a lot in my podcast and everything.
That's great.
So I have now, since I moved to the farm, I have got two new Border Collies. So Kite arrived in February, so he's a year old, and
Lovely.
Tali is 6 months old.
Oh,
Now, they are completely opposite. They could be two different breeds in
wow.
temperament and everything.
Wow.
Kite took nearly a year to learn to settle in the house, and he's not a house dog. He sleeps in kennel. I mean, he comes in the house, but then when I'm here working or I'm doing something that I can't keep an eye on the dogs, he goes back to his kennel, and he's the
Mm,
happiest dog in the world out there. because he's
Mm.
able to switch off.
Mm.
In a house where I've got cats, I've got the other dogs, I go in and out, it's too much stimulation for him.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
some dogs, not all of them, Tali's completely opposite. She's 6 months old. She's still in the house and she settles very nicely in the house. She doesn't have a crate anymore apart from during the night. But some dogs really need that kind of space where they completely can switch off. Um,
Mm.
so it's important to plan that in advance
Yeah.
and create a space where you don't keep going in and out, where you don't have
Mm.
cats and kids running in, where you don't
Mm.
have other dogs bothering them. That place where they can go and just switch off because they need that as a
Yeah.
breed. They need to they need more than others because otherwise their brain is developed, has been selected to constantly be active and work. And
Mm.
if their surrounding is constantly movement, there's always movement, kids and cats and other dogs and people going in and out, then some of them will not be able to settle. So giving them that settling time and that settling space is very important. Because I think that sometimes, and I get that often in my students, like how much does your puppy sleep? Oh, she doesn't sleep. She's up and about all day. That's
When
why we have problems.
puppies need about 18 hours, 18, 20 hours sleep, don't they?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They can't be always on the go. Perfect. So, are there any creative enrichment activities that work particularly well for border collies?
I have to say, my favorite thing is just teaching as many behaviors as you want. Now, I am not. I'm going to talk about this a little bit because there is a game that you can teach them, where you can teach them to stalk a ball, and that looks like they're stalking a sheep. Now, I've tried it with my own dogs; they don't care, and they don't care. They just don't care. I like to teach my dogs to, as I said already, share a toy with me and bring it back to me and we do a bit of tug and I might throw it out or you might just chase it. So I'm not a big fan of alternative herding and stalking games.
I see.
And
Yeah.
and uh, you might find other collie specialists that do that as their main thing. Everyone is
Mm.
different. I've had border
Uh,
collie for 20 years. My dogs have seen sheep, but not enough to say they've always worked. I
right.
used to live in a big city, and
Mm.
my colleague that is now 14 years old is one of the strongest dog I've ever had in prey drive and need to work. He needed a farm. I didn't have it. It's too difficult for me to handle on the sheep. It was got too much
Mm.
drive. So from three
Mm.
years old up to now that he's 14, he's not practiced his stalking abilities, and he's still been a very happy dog because I
Mm.
provided training, play, scent work activity, enrichment activity. So
Yes.
your border collie doesn't need activities to stalk and herd.
Yeah.
As long as they have an enriched life with training and they learn behaviors, they learn to do things for you, they learn to listen to requests and love to do things for you. So there is not one thing, and I don't think that every border collie has to herd and has to stalk things to be happy,
Mm.
but they need to definitely feel like they're doing a job. So for Moss, agility was a job. You
Mm.
could see in his face, it wasn't just enjoyment. It was a
Yeah.
job. It was sit in the front of the first jump and he would attack that course like, like he was working on the mountains to collect the sheep. It was a job for him. So they need to have that brain stimulated, and you can't just teach them sit down and stand and stay.
Nah.
They have to
Boring.
learn constantly
Yeah.
new behaviors.
Sounds like about just having those appropriate additional outlets to keep them engaged.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a specific thing, but scent work is a great thing because scent work, for example, is teaching them, is giving them something to work. They
Mm.
definitely work when they sniff a lot and they go in high intensity sniffing. They do use a lot of energies. Then the end result of finding something is play.
Mm.
If you teach it that way, and I do personally, I teach them that after they found something for me, then we play for a good few minutes. And because they're using their nose, for example, instead of their eyes,
Mm.
then they're not learning. They're using a sense that for border collies is not as natural, and is helping counteracting the eye, which can get him into trouble. So I
Mm.
use scent work a lot for dogs that go around stalking and looking for things to stalk. Actually,
Yeah.
teaching them to do some scent work in those situations is very useful.
Yeah, love scent work. Perfect. Thank you so much. So moving on to our next section, and that's the challenges of owning a border collie. Sorry, my dog's led on my questions there. So border collies can sometimes struggle with overstimulation or frustration. How can owners start to recognize the early signs and respond appropriately?
Okay, so I um, the first thing to know how a dog is not able to, you know, the dog that cannot pay attention. You know, when you start taking your puppy out and you are trying to get your puppy attention and they are looking around, stalking something, not taking your treats, pulling on a lead, going all crazy every time there is something appearing in the environment. This is the first time that your puppy shouldn't be put in that situation
Mm,
until you have better focus skills and you have better, training tools to be able to have a puppy that is paying attention. And that's where problems start arising. We have a puppy, we take them out on the walk because we have to socialize them. But that puppy that is bred to start noticing the environment and the movement in the environment, that doesn't have any skills to be able to pay attention to the owner, is
mm,
going to start looking at things that move. And that's how, for example, car chasing starts.
right.
Because they are on the road, suddenly something goes past very fast and they look at it and they are like, ooh, and then they are on a lead.
Mm,
So they can't actually perform the behavior. And
mm,
then they start pulling and then they start getting frustrated. And
ah.
the majority of owners don't see that. I see, when you drive as a dog trainer, you drive your car
Yes, I know what you're going
and
to say.
yeah, and then you look, oh, there's a border collie, and I see this little puppy on a harness that is not suitable for that puppy, on a flexi lead,
Oh
with
God.
an older person that is already staring at my car going past. And the owners are not even aware because they're chatting with each other, and this puppy is already stalking cars. That puppy
Yeah,
is 4 or 5 months old. When he reaches a year old and he weighs 20 kilos, um,
he's
and
going
he's
to
still
pull
on.
that person over.
Yes, this is where it starts, but nobody realizes until it's a big problem.
Mm. I thought you were going to say that. I mean, you probably look out for border collies, but I find that I just look at other people's dogs. I see people out walking their dogs, and I'm fascinated. I just look at the dog, and I'm like, oh,
Yes, I'm a bit of a border collie myself, so I'm a bit obsessed. So I
yeah.
normally, if it's a dog, I just let it go. But if it's a border collie, I stop and look at the behavior and I'm like, yeah,
But
look
oh,
at that.
I mean, that's a good idea to do that, isn't it? Because you specialize in that breed. So, I mean, I've got toy poodles and chihuahuas. So obviously, like, I see tons of like poodle crosses and that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just find myself looking at people's dogs. They must think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so herding behaviors in pet homes can be very challenging. What's your advice for managing them safely?
So the first thing is, as soon as you have just a bit of suspicion that your puppy is performing herding behaviors towards your cat, your kids, your neighbor's kids, a car, a bike, a runner. And that means that they might look at the something that is coming close and then they pounce forward
Mm,
or they stalk, their head goes down and they look like they are kind of hypnotized by that. That's the first sign that
mm,
you should contact a dog trainer,
right.
someone that understands that. Because I get, again, everyone has the specialities. We can't be good at everything.
Mm.
If someone comes to me with separation anxiety, I send them to someone else because it's not
Yeah.
my specialty.
Oh, that's one of my
So,
specialities.
yeah. So I'll add you to my list of people that I normally
Oh,
send
thank
names
you.
out. But yeah, so it's, they you need to go to a dog trainer that understands that, because the quicker you get hold of that problem and manage it from the beginning, which means not exposing your puppy to situations that can provoke their behavior again
Mm,
until you've done some training to prevent their
mm,
behavior. It's going to just escalate. It's not going to get better.
mm.
So don't hope that border collies grow, and I hear it all the time. Oh, they'll grow out of it. Just sit on a chair on a bench next to a busy road and just leave them there for 2 hours with you.
Oh,
No. No. The way Border Collies trigger, I'll tell you how I triggered my 6 months old puppy to work sheep. She wasn't
Yeah,
interested in sheep, so I took her with me every time I trained my other dogs, and I allowed her
yeah.
to watch. Guess what? One day she went like, "Oh, I like that." So I went in with her, and she suddenly started chasing sheep. That's how they develop the chase and the wanting to work, is
Mm,
allowing them to watch. So now every time there is sheep, I stop and I allow her to watch, and I see her head going down, her bum going up, and she starts having that shape of a border collie. So allowing them to look at movement happening is the best way to
mm,
develop that behavior, not to get them past it.
mm.
And I think
Uh,
there's this misconception yet still.
yeah.
A lot of dog trainers as well as owners that trust those dog trainers.
Mm. Sounds a bit like you can do that engage disengage game, can't you?
Yes.
Letting them sort of engage and then doing the disengage
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
so I'm a control unleashed instructor as well. So I've
Oh
done my
yes.
my certification in 2020 with Leslie
Oh
McDevitt.
yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I use the look at that game and all the pattern game to help dogs filter
Brilliant.
in the environment through focused based games so that they learn that okay, yeah, there is traffic far away, but we are here and we're learning to engage with me while disengaging from traffic. And the sooner you start that process, the better it is for little puppies or dogs that start noticing movement.
Mm.
So yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. So how do you help Border Collie pet parents teach their dogs to switch off and relax?
Okay. So the first thing that I always say to everyone that asks me that question is your dog cannot be relaxed and switch off unless they've had appropriate exercise and training. So there
Mm.
is no relaxation without proper exercise and training.
Mm.
Um, so just doing calming games or giving them a chew or giving them a Kong is not going to make them relax if they have excess energy, both brain and body. So make sure that you meet their needs and they get enough exercise in an appropriate and safe way and enough training. Now,
Mm.
after that is teaching them a routine. So for young dogs, I take them out for a walk, I take them out for training. They go to the toilet, they go back to their crate or their pen, they get a chew, they get a Kong, and they learn to switch off after they've done exercise. So that they learn that after they had like adrenalinic time because they've been out playing and training and doing that, then I allow them an activity that calms them down and
Mm.
helps them calm down. Because otherwise, the problem of a lot of border collies, they're not able to calm down on their own and they need that input. So allowing them to chew on something that will last them a bit or to give them a frozen Kong with food in it that will last them a bit, then is allowing the adrenaline to go down in that time that they're chewing. And then
Yeah.
they find themselves in the crate or in the pen. And it's much easier for them to then say, okay, now I've had enough. I've done my exercise. I've done my training. I've done my enrichment. Then I go for a nap. Um, and then
Brilliant.
parallel to that, it's all the training that you can do to help that, which is teaching them to relax on a bed and promoting relaxation through training
Mm.
so that they learn
Mm.
that actually standing still and putting their head on their legs, on their front feet, and that kind of promoting the attitude of relaxation through training in the
Yeah.
house can also improve or make that relaxation a bit quicker. But some dogs takes ages to get to that level. My
Mm.
1 year old, it took him nearly a year to learn to actually switch off in the house, which meant that if I had to switch him off, I had to put him in a place where he could switch off rather than allowing him to do it on his own in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to sort of help them, haven't you? You've got to show them
Yeah,
that because sometimes they can't sort of self-regulate themselves, so you kind of need to just sort of,
exactly.
direct them to do that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So that's really great. So we're going to move on to our next section, which is training for connection and cooperation. So, what training approaches work best for border collies, given their intelligence and sensitivity?
Well, definitely has to be positive,
Absolutely.
but it shouldn't be permissive in a way
Mm,
that you don't want to just drop all your boundaries and your Like they need to have some boundaries still. They need to
Of
know that
course.
some things are not allowed. Like my puppies learn that they're not allowed to bite the cats and chase the cats and eat the cats
Well,
like they're sheep from the beginning, because they have to live with the cats in the kitchen. And so positive training, a lot of play. I like to teach them to think. So I do
mm,
shaping and capturing. So I have a sequence of exercises that start from teaching them to put their feet in a box and then go around a cone and then, go on a mat and then I develop other behaviors that I use for fitness in the future when they're a bit older, teaching them to think how to obtain something rather than just provide it for them.
mm,
There's a box in front of you. I've got a treats here. I've got my clicker. What can you do to obtain that food? And they start offering behaviors because they have the brain for it. And
just
then
get
they
them
learn that,
thinking.
yeah, get them thinking and and make them learn that actually, if they produce a certain behavior, then the rewards comes.
Yes.
So that they start offering the good behavior or trying to offer something in order to be rewarded. So I really like shaping for that reason with collies. I do use a lot of Primac with them,
Yes.
which is probably a
Yeah.
bit more advanced for most pet people, but I like to
Yes.
explain it to
Yeah.
owners.
Yeah, definitely.
We train Primac principle states that a behavior that is unlikely to happen often gets rewarded, but sorry, a behavior that is unlikely to happen or the dog doesn't want to do gets reinforced by the behavior that the dogs want to do. So instead of using the actual reward, you can use behaviors to reinforce other behaviors. And this is
Mm,
how we train them on sheep. We don't have
mm,
treats, we don't have a clicker, we don't have toys. If you lie down, you can walk on. If you come away with the sheep, you can go back to them. If you turn left and you give space to the sheep, then you can bring them to me. So they learn with, if you do something that you don't want to do because your instinct is telling you to do opposite, then I let you do what you want to do, which is what your instinct is telling you to do.
yeah.
And that way, with collies, even in everyday life, works really well to
Yeah.
teach them, like, if I need to remove the lead before you can run off, you can sit calmly. And instead of jumping on the door to get out, you can sit quietly while I open the door. So
Mm,
teaching them that behavior produce behaviors,
yes. Yeah.
and that sometimes is more powerful than any treats.
Yeah. Perfect. How important is relationship building when working with this breed?
Yes, so it's important, like I think with any dog,
Mm.
but some border collies, you know, it, that's why always my partner. I'm laughing because my partner that today, my 1 year old that used to be a very independent dog, now is like my second skin.
Oh, okay.
But he was very when he came, I was like, "Oh no, an independent dog! I can't stand them. I just want dogs that are easy to train, that wants to be with you." And now, if I'm sitting in the kitchen, he's on me, like he sits on
Like
my
a
lap,
Velcro
and he
dog.
like a Velcro dog. So they do become Velcro dog if you have the right relationship, and that is so much easier than having a dog that doesn't want to be a Velcro because, of course,
Really? That's interesting.
yes, because of course, if you have a dog that is so interested in environment, you need to have a dog that wants to be with you so that then, my, as I said, my 1 year old Kite, we go for a walk and he's in front of me, jumping and looking at me, jumping and looking at me. He's a bit obsessive, but that doesn't make him chase after hares or disappear into the woods looking for deer.
Right.
He helps him keeping with me. And we build that through relationship. And that relationship also comes through work. So
Mm,
you can't, they do trust you and they do want to be with you once they know that they work for you, whatever
yeah.
that work is. That's why
Yeah.
training is important with them, because the breed has been bred on that working relationship with the shepherds.
Mm, mm.
So it's so
You
important.
you were saying, so did something happen with him in today? You said he was sat with you or something, or
Yeah, today it was, so I was waiting for my partner to finish lunch and everyone else was like, yeah, lie down in the kitchen, and he was sitting on me with his paws on my shoulder and his head like wrapped around my neck, and she turns around and looks at him and is like, it's disgusting. It just has to be a second skin.
oh my God, I see what you mean now. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Oh
is like that.
bless.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it though. I wouldn't want it any other way. What what would be the biggest mistake that you see Border Collie pet parents making, Border Collie guardians making when it comes to training?
So I think the biggest problem that is caused by the owners is that food motivation. There
Mm,
is this kind of idea that border collies are not food motivated dogs. I've never had one that didn't, they came to me not food motivated. There was a health issue. And when we
mm,
got past that health issue, then the food motivation came and was there. And I
mm,
think that the biggest problem is because they're so busy, they sometimes forget to take the treat. They forget to finish their dinner. And instead of making sure that when you offer a treat and when you give them the dinner, they're able to take it and to finish it, they either start putting too much pressure on the fact that they have to eat or they have to take the treat, or they put the value up because they have to eat. They're puppies, they have to eat. And the biggest issue I have when I have owners coming to me is that their border collies don't want to work for food because of
mm,
these two reasons. So then I have to work hard to put food motivation back into the dog that sees food as a kind of a like a bit of poison. Oh no, you're going to put so much pressure on me because they are sensitive dogs to take that treat. So that must be, I don't want it. And yeah, instead of like if they have to eat, just put them in a situation where they can finish their dinner. And if you're offering treats, you need to make sure that they are in a situation to be able to take treats. And sometimes when the puppies, they're not. They have the walk you're taking them is too busy.
mm.
They've got too much energy and they're on a meter lead.
Yeah.
They're pulling on a lead because they want to run around and they can't. So food is the last of their problems. But we try, and everyone tries their best to try because, training with food is good
Mm,
and they try, but then that way you poison the food for them. So
yeah.
offer food when they're able to take it to start with and
Right.
put them in a situation to be able to take food. And when they can't, then try to manage it. Don't force treats on them. And that way, then when they grow a bit and they can pay attention more and they can focus more, then you haven't put, that kind of bad emotion into food. And I think and the second thing would be ball playing, probably. Too much ball play, and then not enough relationship play, just ball play. And then if there's no ball, then they don't pay attention. They don't come back for a recall. They just go and do their own things as the ball goes away. So train first and then teach play in a more kind of in a relationship way. And then the ball can come in the future when they're a bit older and they have a good recall and they know how to bring a toy back and enjoy the toy with you rather than just throw it at your feet and back off to wait
Yeah.
another throw.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Wow, we've literally sailed through this episode, literally packed with information and advice. It's so interesting. For the last sort of 5 to 7 minutes, I'm going to just ask you some remaining sort of 3 or 4 questions, if I may. So, Martina, what's the most rewarding part of working with Border Collies?
So I I think that once they get once the owner and the dog understand each other, it's seeing that and see their relationship growing and seeing that kind of drive that we
Mm,
talked about at the beginning
mm,
channeled into doing something for the owner.
mm,
Once that is achieved, then it's amazing to see how much the owners enjoy training and the
mm,
dogs enjoy working for the owner.
mm,
So
mm.
once they get to that point where they understand how to engage with their dogs and how to make that work like being a job for the dog, then that's it. That that's
Yeah.
that's that's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, brilliant. And I picked up on something you said earlier about obviously, and I'm really big on this, that the dog was reading the human's body language. And I'm so big on sort of like pet owners or pet professionals learning and understanding canine body language. So I think
Mhm.
that's really important, isn't it, as well? Because
Yeah.
they read our body language and our cues, and they communicate to us through their body language, they communicate to each other. So it's so powerful, isn't it, to really understand all that?
Yeah, and if you think about the Border Collie have been selected to read livestock behavior. So I
Mm,
think they are exceptional at reading body language,
yeah.
because they're being bred to observe the sheep and they know the sheep are moving before you even know. And that's why
Yeah.
it's difficult. We haven't even touched about herding, but that's why training them with sheep is difficult because the dog sees it before you and then you're late. At,
Right.
at cueing what they should be doing. So yeah, so they are good, and but also I think border collies. And again, one thing that is very important about body language and border collies is that a lot of the time, what looks like fear is actually not. A lot of the time,
That's
the tail goes
interesting.
down, the head goes down, and they look like they've got that typical attitude that you probably have in your head from the books that we studied at the beginning of our journey, where that dog is like a bit arched down, the tail under, and
Mm,
the ears back, and the head down, and they're like, "Oh,
yeah.
he's scared." No, that's a herding stance.
So that's why I always say you've got to put it into context, and there could be breed specific traits that they're
Yeah.
demonstrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kite, when he works, his tail is of my collies is the one that has the best tail. That's considered a best tail. And I've been, people have told me, oh, he's got a good tail. The good tail is means that his tail is under his belly, and he's so much under his belly that the tip comes out to the side
Wow.
of his
Okay.
leg when he
Wow.
works.
Yeah.
If you see that, if I show you a picture of that without context, you probably see, oh, the dog is petrified.
Mm. Mm.
Very scared.
Yeah.
His ears are might be back and, his eyes might be a bit no, he's hurting.
Wow.
So,
That's
yeah.
so
So,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it's important, as you say, for
Yeah.
owners to read the body language, but knowing also what dogs they have.
Yeah.
Because in
Yeah.
a collie, that is can be fear, it can be
Yeah.
fear. But if they're
Yeah.
doing it to another dog, it could also be just that they're trying to control the other dog.
I don't know if it's possible or not because you said we've not touched on herding. Did you want to just give us a quick overview of herding?
Yes, I would like to say something because that's a question I get asked a lot of the time from dog
Good.
owners and colleagues
Please
about,
do.
you know, pet dogs actually starting herding as a hobby to help them,
Mm,
having an enriched life and to give them an outlet. And
yeah.
I've been doing it. I've had this farm for a year. Before that, I was doing herding as a hobby with my dogs.
Oh, wow.
And I've done it since my very first dog. She was a show line. She wasn't even a working line, but she was working for me. Then I had Moss. Then I got Jock. Then I got Tay, which is my main working dog. But he started herding as a hobby, as a kind of every other week activity when he was 1, and he's 4 now. So I've done it with all my collies as a kind of activity. But I will always say to my students that wants to start, or my colleagues that ask me, where can I go with my students colleague that needs an activity because they want to chase everything? I always say, it's not always the best choice, because you can't just take the collie to sheep once a month or once every other week, and then if you have a month of rain and you never go back, and then you go back, because some collies needs daily exposure to sheep to be able to actually train and progress and actually listen and be safe for the sheep, because we have not to forget the herding is about the sheep. The sheep are our main concern. We train dogs so that we can manage our livestock in a good welfare,
Mm,
having dogs means that I'm not, I can move sheep easily and calmly from one place to the other without the sheep getting stressed, which
yeah.
means that it's important that the dogs doesn't stress the sheep out. And unless you do it regularly, some dogs won't allow you that. So you start an activity with them that they might not be able to progress because they are too much. Like Moss couldn't do it as a hobby. He had to
Mm.
stop when he was 3 because he was biting sheep.
Oh,
So I had to
gosh.
stop. Yeah, he had a big grip, and that grip was excitement and frustration because the sheep were not moving, and that's fine. Some collies have that, but if I had a farm back then, I could have trained that out of him quicker because I could give him a lot of job, and then he will be calm every time he goes to sheep. So
Right.
it's not always the best activity for pet dogs, but if you have, but some of my students do it. They come to me or I send them to someone else that, it's not my job training dogs, training other people's dogs on sheep, but I have a few students that are also friends that trust
Mm,
me, and they come and do it with me every now and then, and they are safe for the sheep. So they do it, and then they might not do it for a month, and then when they come back it takes them a bit to calm down, but then they're able to do it. So yeah, so herding is a great activity, but not everyone can do it. It's not always the best choice for pet
yeah.
dogs.
So definitely seek out a specialist professional like yourself before we do herding.
Yeah, or someone that is, ideally more experienced than me, but
Right.
expect it not to, to be a big commitment.
Sure. Brilliant. Thank you for touching on that. If you could give one piece of advice to someone struggling with their border collie, what would it be?
So having a border collie is like having a second job. You need to really, it's a full-time job. So if you have already a full-time job, it's your second full-time job.
Wow.
If, of course, if you have one of those border collies that needs a bit more work, it takes me half a day to go through all mine when I train them, and I don't train them everyone every day, but when I do, it's my day off. But half of day is gone just to train 4 dogs.
Wow.
Um, I know. Sunday should have been my day off. And I said, "Oh, today I'm just going to take the afternoon off." And at 4:30 in the afternoon, I was still outside training dogs, and I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe tomorrow." So, yeah. So it's, if you're struggling, you need to put the work in. There's not going to be a quick fix. There's not
Mm,
going to be, even if you come to me, I'm not going to give you a solution straight away. That you need to commit. You need to be consistent. You need to be, you know, committed and consistent, so that
mm,
you put the work in, and that's the only way your dog is going to improve. And I know that
mm,
that's for everyone. That's for every dog training. But because they are a breed that needs work anyway,
mm.
it's even more important to understand that you're not going to do 8 weeks of training and that's the dog is fixed. You
That's
have a
it.
border collie forever.
Training's for life.
Yeah, until they
Mm,
get to an age where they can start slowing down. But
yeah.
it's different to everyone. Even if you ask me a question, when do they start slowing down? Moss is 14 and he still wants to do things.
Oh,
If
bless
I don't take him out for a walk, a little walk, but still a walk every day, or he spends half an hour in the paddock with the others, he's a pain in the evening sometimes because
him.
he's got too much brain energy. Body energy, not a lot, but brain energy is still there at 14.
Yeah. Oh, bless him. And I picked, so like with a lot of training, consistency is key, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
um, what do you wish more people understood before getting a border collie?
How much work they are.
Yeah.
I think nobody realizes until you are in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not all of them, don't get me wrong, you can still get the one like Tay. Tay, my main working dog at the farm now, he is the easiest dog. If I could clone him, he would be the perfect dog to give to all the people that wants a pet dog. He
Yeah.
could have been a pet dog as well as a working dog, but he's the only one of mine
Yeah.
over 5 working dogs. He's the only one that really could have done both.
Yeah.
Um, all the others just have too much to just be pet dogs.
Mm,
So
brilliant.
they're hard work.
Hard work, but rewarding, I'm sure. Very
Oh yeah,
rewarding.
I love it. I love it. But you need to love, and the good thing is that a lot of my students, they come to me when they have no idea what training is, and then they become obsessed about training. And then
Yes.
they are the one that becomes really good, and then they want to learn more, and then they go into do other sports and agility or obedience or scent work, or some of them started a bit of herding with me. So yeah, they then become obsessed because how good it is.
Brilliant. Martina, thank you. I'm going to put you on the spot now. One question I didn't make you aware of, but we've got lots of fantastic guests lined up for the Yappy Hour. We've got vets, groomers, behaviourists, more breed specific specialists, lots of different amazing guests, including yourself. But if there was one person you think that I should invite onto the Yappy Hour, who would that be?
Hmm.
This always gets people thinking.
Yes. So I have a very good friend, which has been in my podcast already, which I talk to pretty much every day. We send each other voice notes. And she is mainly an agility trainer, but she does residential training and she does also service training for dogs for autistic kids.
Oh,
And she's
wow.
called Lila um, Zawatowicz. I can send you the name because I don't know
Yeah,
if I pronounced it right.
you sent me the name.
I'll send you
Yeah.
the name, and she's a good friend of mine, but she's a very knowledgeable trainer. And she, as I said, she does agility at high level, she does residential training, and she does it the right way. The dogs live in the house with her and everything. And then she does also assistant dogs training, which I find it very fascinating. And I've
Yes.
seen dogs from the beginning to the point that they are living with their kids and they help them, and they have so much skill and so much, yeah, it's amazing. So
Brilliant. So yeah, she definitely sounds like really someone really interesting that we need to get on. So yeah, do send me some details. Martina, thank you so much. Literally, my mind is
you're welcome.
blown. Like so much useful information, and it's been so interesting. I've learned so much. If our listeners would like to find out more about you, how can they reach you?
So I have, of course, my website, which is that'lldoacademy.com. I run my own podcast, which is the Border Collie Geek,
Glad
where
you
I talk
said
about
about
border
that.
collies.
I was going to ask you to mention your podcast, so that's
Yeah.
perfect.
I'm on social media as the Border Collie Geek, both on TikTok and Instagram. And I also have a Facebook group, which is free for everyone to join, which is the Border Collie Geek Learning Community. So I do kind of like free videos and tips
Mm,
and things in that group, and I answer question.
yeah.
Of course, if you need help with training, I can book you in for a discovery call and we can have a chat on Zoom or on the phone for a chat. I have online courses, online academy is all on my website anyway. So there's different way to reach me and have my support. I've got webinars, I've got everything. So you can start from a webinar up to working with me, one-to-one
Oh,
training.
oh, lovely. And just remind us of that website again.
That'lldoacademy.com.
Perfect. Brilliant. Martina, thank you so much for joining me on the Yappy Hour powered by Yappily today. Honestly, I think we're going to have to get you back in the future. I feel like we've only just sort of scratched the surface.
Yep.
I know I know our listeners are going to find this chat so interesting. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me today, and hopefully we will get to chat again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. What a fantastic conversation with Martina Miradoli. Her passion for Border Collies is truly inspiring, and I hope you come away with some valuable insights. Here are a few key takeaways from today's episode. Number one, Border Collies are incredibly intelligent and high energy dogs, which means they need both physical and mental stimulation to truly thrive. Number two, understanding the breed's natural instincts, especially their herding drive, is crucial to managing their behaviour in a pet home. Number three, training with patience and respect for their intelligence helps build a stronger connection and well balanced dog. Number four, enrichment activities such as scent work and agility are excellent ways to meet a Border Collie's needs and strengthen your bond with them. Martina, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. And to all our listeners, if you're looking for more tips and advice on living with a Border Collie, be sure to check out the Ado Academy and follow Martina on social media for expert guidance. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review or sharing it with a fellow dog parent. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Yappy Hour. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.